Babylon, 1754 BCE. A king named Hammurabi has just finished something no ruler in history had ever attempted. Not a palace, not a military campaign, a law governing interest rates. The document is carved into a 7-foot column of black stone, 282 laws, and buried inside them, in Articles 88 through 107, is a rule that will still be shaping your financial life 4,000 years later. If a lender charges more than the legal interest rate, the entire debt is canceled. The borrower owes nothing. That column still exists. You can see it today at the Louvre Museum in Paris. You can read the original text, and when you do, you realize something that most people never stop to consider. The financial system you live inside right now, your mortgage, your credit card interest, the percentage your employer withholds before your paycheck reaches you, was not always here. It was built, city by city, century by century, across 6 of the greatest financial capitals the ancient world ever produced. That story starts right now. Think about the last time you paid interest on something. A car loan, a student loan, a credit card balance you carried 1 month longer than you planned. That mechanism, charging a fee on borrowed money calculated over time, has a precise origin point. It was codified into law for the first time in Babylon in 1754 BCE, not as a custom, as a written, enforceable, legally protected transaction. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York's Household Debt and Credit Report from 2024 shows that American households collectively carry $17.5 trillion in debt. Every percentage point of interest on that debt flows through legal frameworks that are, structurally, 4,000 years old. Every city we are going to visit today, Babylon, Athens, Carthage, Alexandria, Rome, Constantinople, built one piece of the financial architecture you live inside right now. When we are done, you will see your own financial life differently. Not with alarm, with clarity. There is a question I want you to hold through this entire video. Which of these 6 cities most closely mirrors where the United States sits in the global financial order today? Hold it. The answer builds with every city we visit. The archaeology begins in the city that invented the bank. It was 1754 BCE. On the banks of the Euphrates River in what is now central Iraq, Hammurabi had been king for 42 years. He had already unified most of Mesopotamia, but he understood something very few rulers of his era grasped. A kingdom is only as stable as its economic contracts. Before Hammurabi, lending existed. A farmer who needed grain for a new planting season borrowed it from a merchant. A craftsman borrowed silver to buy materials. But those agreements were unwritten, unregulated, unprotected. The lender could change the terms at any moment. The borrower had no recourse. Hammurabi changed that. The Code of Hammurabi, confirmed and documented, the original stele at the Louvre in Paris, established the world's first written financial regulation. 20% per year on silver loans, 33% on grain, and if a lender exceeded the legal rate, the debt was voided entirely. The lender received nothing. Consumer protection law, Mesopotamia, 4,000 years ago. But that was only the foundation. Because what Babylon built over the following 12 centuries was something far more sophisticated. There is a family whose records the British Museum holds today, preserved in clay tablets that have survived longer than most of the world's monuments. The House of Agibi. The Agibi family operated in Babylon from approximately 700 BCE to around 480 BCE, more than 200 years. Their cuneiform records, studied by scholars including Muhammad Dandamayev in his landmark 1984 work on Babylonian economic history, document banking operations that any commercial banker today would recognize instantly. They accepted deposits. They issued loans against collateral. They financed long-distance trade expeditions. They wrote contracts specifying repayment terms, interest rates, penalties for default, and the names of witnesses. Idi Marduk-Balatu, one of the documented heads of the family, managed a portfolio of commercial lending across multiple sectors of the Babylonian economy simultaneously. The same structure, the same logic, written on clay in Babylon, 6 centuries before the birth of Christ. And here is the layer most accounts never reach. The temples of Babylon, the temple of Marduk, the temple of Shamash at Sippar, were not only spiritual centers, According to analysis published in the Journal of Economic History and confirmed by generations of subsequent scholarship, these sanctuaries functioned as the equivalent of central banks, holding deposits, extending credit, and operating with what the study calls the added weight of official authority. A deposit at the Temple of Marduk was witnessed by the entity, which was part of the contract. When you think about why you trust a bank, why you deposit your paycheck into an institution you've never personally inspected, you are drawing on something very old. The idea that a financial institution derives its authority from something larger than any individual transaction. Babylon built that idea first. Keep that in mind as we travel to Athens, because Athens is about to show you what happens when you attach the Babylonian financial framework to something it had never touched before. Democratic decision-making. Athens, 483 BCE. A rich silver vein had just been discovered in the state-owned mines of Laurion, south of the city. The Democratic Assembly had to decide what to do with the windfall. The popular proposal: distribute it. Every Athenian citizen receives approximately 10 drachmas, money in hand. Benefit today. A statesman named Themistocles stood up and argued for something different. He wanted to build 200 warships. Herodotus documents this debate in the Histories, Book 7. Themistocles believed Athens' long-term prosperity depended on naval dominance of the Aegean. The assembly voted with him. 3 years later, those ships met the Persian fleet at Salamis. The result transformed the ancient Mediterranean world. Athens became the dominant power of the Greek city-states. And dominant powers attract something that compounds over time: tribute. By 454 BCE, Athens led the Delian League, more than 150 city-states each paying annual contributions. According to Thucydides, by 431 BCE, that tribute was approximately 600 talents of silver per year. The Oxford Classical Dictionary places the purchasing power of that figure at hundreds of millions of dollars annually in modern terms. But here is what made Athens a true financial capital, not simply a powerful city. In the Agora, the central marketplace, a new kind of professional had appeared. The trapezitai, from the Greek word trapeza, meaning table. They sat behind wooden tables in the open air and did something Athens had never institutionalized before. They exchanged currencies. Merchants from Corinth, Persia, Egypt, and Phoenicia each carried coins of different weights and silver purities. The trapezitai assessed them, weighed them, exchanged them for Athenian drachmas, and charged a fee. The first documented currency exchange in the Western world, 5th century BCE, in the Athens marketplace. And then they went further. They accepted deposits, made loans, financed trade expeditions, private commercial banking, operating in parallel with the state's imperial financial architecture. Athens, by 450 BCE, was running 2 financial systems simultaneously: public finance funded by empire and a private market driven by commerce. That dual architecture is not a modern invention. Athens built it 25 centuries ago. The lesson Themistocles taught is precise. A resource invested in strategic position compounds differently than a resource consumed. Athens chose the long-term investment and became the financial capital of the Greek world for a century. The city we visit next understood this principle even more completely and built a financial empire with no silver mines, no tribute-paying allies, and no military dominance. Just routes. North Africa, 814 BCE. A Phoenician princess named Elissa, known in Latin sources as Dido, arrived on the coast of what is now Tunisia. The ancient historian Justin, in his Epitome of the Philippic History, records what happened when she negotiated for land with a local king. She could have as much land as a single oxhide could cover. She cut the oxhide into the thinnest possible strips, laid them end to end, and enclosed a hilltop large enough to build a citadel. She called the hill Byrsa. The city that grew around it she called Kart Hadasht, the new city. We call it Carthage. For 5 centuries Carthage grew, without philosophical fame, without military spectacle, quietly, commercially. building the most sophisticated trade network the ancient Mediterranean had ever seen. By 264 BCE, Carthage's reach extended across the entire western Mediterranean, North Africa, Sicily, Sardinia, the Balearic Islands, the southern coast of Spain, the Atlantic coastline of Morocco as far as the trading post at Mogador, confirmed by archaeological excavations at the modern site of Essaouira, and embedded in every territory was something most accounts never fully examine: a treaty clause prohibiting foreign competition. Polybius, the Greek historian with direct access to Roman archives, whose histories are among the most reliable primary sources from this period, describes in books 1 through 3 the commercial treaties between Carthage and Rome. Greek merchants, Roman traders, anyone outside the Carthaginian network, excluded. The Western Mediterranean was a closed financial system. Carthage held the access. The mechanism had 3 components. First, Carthage controlled the silver mines of Iberia, the Spanish and Portuguese peninsula. Silver was the reserve currency of the ancient Mediterranean. Controlling its primary source meant controlling, in practical terms, the supply of money itself. Second, the Carthaginian navy was not primarily a military force. It was a commercial enforcement mechanism, the enforcement arm of a financial monopoly. Third, Carthage's commercial oligarchy reinvested trade profits into expanding the network. Revenue funded more infrastructure. More infrastructure generated more revenue. What economists today call a trade finance feedback loop. Carthage was running 2,000 years before the term existed. What Carthage understood is this: you do not need to own resources to become a financial capital. You need to own the routes through which resources move. After more than a century of conflict with Rome across 3 Punic Wars, 264 to 146 BCE, Carthage was overcome and the city leveled. But the model survived. Rome absorbed the trade routes, the commercial treaties, the legal frameworks. Rome didn't just win a military conflict. It inherited a financial architecture and built something even larger with it. Remember the question from the beginning of this video: which of these 6 cities most closely mirrors where the United States sits today? We are getting close to the answer. Alexandria is about to give you the most important piece of it: Egypt. 331 BCE. Alexander the Great was 25 years old. He had just been crowned pharaoh at Memphis, and he was standing at the northern edge of Egypt, where the Nile Delta meets the Mediterranean, looking at a narrow strip of coastline between a lake and the open water. According to Arrian's Anabasis of Alexander, the most authoritative ancient biography, written in the 2nd century CE based on first-hand accounts by Alexander's generals, Alexander personally walked the proposed boundaries of the new city, indicating where the streets would run, where the harbor would sit. When he ran out of chalk to mark the lines, he used barley flour from the army's supplies. Birds came and ate the flour almost immediately. His advisors saw an omen. Alexander said, "The city will feed the world." He was right. Alexandria was the first city in history designed, before a single stone was laid, specifically as a commercial hub, not as a garrison, not as a royal residence, as the place where everything converged. The Ptolemaic dynasty that ruled Egypt after Alexander understood this with striking clarity. Under Ptolemy the Pharaoh and his successors, Alexandria became what the World History Encyclopedia's documented analysis of the Ptolemaic economy describes as the most important commercial center of the ancient Mediterranean, positioned deliberately at the intersection of Africa, Asia, and Europe. The Ptolemies managed trade, not just allowed it. Grain, Egypt's primary export and the food supply for much of the Mediterranean, moved through government-controlled infrastructure. The state held legal monopolies on papyrus, linen, oil, and glass. Every merchant operating through Alexandria's harbor paid documented fees under Ptolemaic commercial law. Coin hoards containing Alexandria-minted silver drachmas have been recovered from sites across the Mediterranean and as far east as the western coast of India. But Alexandria built something that went beyond trade infrastructure: the library. The Library of Alexandria, containing at its height estimates ranging from 400,000 to 700,000 scrolls, was not a cultural project separate from the financial one. It was the same project. The library attracted scholars. Scholars attracted students. Students arrived from the wealthiest families across the Mediterranean, merchant families, aristocratic families with commercial networks across 3 continents. Those families brought their financial relationships to Alexandria, because the city that held the knowledge held the conversations, and the conversations held the deals. Alexandria was running the ancient world's first knowledge economy. What Themistocles understood in Athens, that resources invested in strategic position compound over time. Alexandria institutionalized at a scale Athens never achieved. The city that understands this and acts on it over generations becomes the financial capital of its era. Rome, 27 BCE. Augustus had just become the first emperor, and one of his earliest acts was not military. It was financial. He restructured the Roman taxation system. The Republic had relied on tax farmers, private contractors called publicani, who paid the government up front for the right to collect taxes in specific provinces, then profited on the margin. The system generated revenue, but inconsistently. Augustus replaced it with a census-based system. Every few years, across an empire stretching from Scotland to Mesopotamia, Roman administrators counted people and assessed property values, not as a demographic exercise, as a financial one. The census was the instrument through which the Roman state knew with documented precision who owed what. That systematic documentation of taxable populations is the direct ancestor of every modern income tax system, every payroll withholding mechanism, every government revenue apparatus operating in the world today. When your employer withholds a portion of your salary before you receive it, they are executing a logic refined and scaled to its first truly imperial form by Augustus Caesar in the 1st century BCE. But Rome built something else that almost no one discusses when examining ancient financial history: portable credit. Roman merchants developed financial instruments that historians working with the Madison Project database describe as proto-promissory notes, documents representing a debt obligation transferable between parties across long distances. A merchant in Rome could issue a credit instrument, send it to a trading partner in Alexandria, and have it honored there. The logic of a modern wire transfer in the 1st century CE. The Madison Project database estimates place Rome's peak economic output in the range of tens of billions of dollars in modern terms, the largest economy the Western world would see for roughly 1,000 years after it, held together not by military force alone, but by financial infrastructure, roads, contract law, a standardized currency, and a taxation system that funded the public goods the economy depended on. When Rome's western territories went through political fragmentation beginning in the late 4th century CE, the financial architecture migrated eastward to a city on a peninsula at the edge of Europe, looking across the water toward Asia. The city that held everything Rome had built intact for another 1,000 years, Constantinople, 330 CE. Emperor Constantine moved the capital of the Roman Empire to a peninsula at the mouth of the Bosphorus Strait, the only waterway connecting the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. From the right hill, you see Europe on one side and Asia on the other. Every ship traveling between those two worlds passes through this single point. Constantine wasn't relocating a capital for administrative convenience. He was repositioning the empire at the most strategically valuable financial location on Earth. When the Western Roman Empire went through its transformation in 476 CE, Constantinople remained. The Byzantine Empire continued for nearly 1,000 years more, and at its center was one instrument of extraordinary durability: the solidus. The Byzantine gold coin, introduced by Constantine, held a consistent gold purity standard, documented by historian Hugh Kennedy in his analysis of the Byzantine and early Islamic Near East. For more than 7 centuries, merchants from Venice to Baghdad, from Cairo to Kiev, accepted the solidus without hesitation. Not because of Byzantine military power, because they trusted the coin. The gold content was reliable. The weight was consistent. Generation after generation, the Byzantine state maintained the standard. 7 centuries as the dominant reserve currency of the known world. The US dollar has held primary reserve currency status since 1944, 82 years. The solidus held its position for roughly 9 times longer. What sustained it was not dominance. It was institutional trust, earned over centuries of consistent behavior. Constantinople was also something no previous financial capital had been so deliberately, a keeper of memory. The Byzantine Empire preserved, studied, and transmitted the legal and financial knowledge of every civilization before it. Babylonian contract law, Greek commercial practice, Roman fiscal architecture, Egyptian trade infrastructure. All of it held in Constantinople's libraries, taught in its academies, practiced in its courts. When a Venetian merchant arrived in Constantinople in the 10th century to negotiate a trade agreement, the legal framework governing that negotiation descended in a direct, traceable line from the clay tablets of the House of Egebe, 600 years before Christ. The archaeology is unbroken. When Constantinople became Istanbul under Ottoman administration in 1453, the city continued as a primary financial hub, connecting east and west for another 4 centuries. The architecture that Babylon started in 1754 BCE reached the 15th century CE without a gap. Her name is Amagi. She is 19 years old. She is standing at the entrance of the Temple of Shamash in the Babylonian city of Sippar in approximately 560 BCE, holding a clay tablet she cannot read. A temple official is explaining the terms of a loan. Her family borrowed grain 18 months ago, a standard transaction, documented in the temple records. The harvest was good this year. The loan is due. The tablet in her hand specifies the amount borrowed, the interest rate, the repayment date, and the names of 3 witnesses. It was written in the presence of the god Shamash. It is legally enforceable under the Code of Hammurabi. And it is documented in an archive that has outlasted every government, every empire, every dynasty that existed when it was written. The records from Sippar, held at the British Museum and studied by scholars for over a century, show something quietly extraordinary. Ordinary people, documented transactions, legal protections on both sides. A system designed not just to serve the powerful, but to provide structure for everyone who participated in the economy. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, updated in 2024, shows that approximately 40% of American adults report difficulty covering an unexpected expense of $400 from savings alone. The structural gap between the person who needs to borrow and the institution with power to set the terms has not changed in 4,000 years. What has changed is documentation, legal protection. The Truth in Lending Act, U.S. federal law, requires every lender to disclose the full annual percentage rate of any credit product before you sign. That legal protection is a direct descendant of Article 88 of the Code of Hammurabi. The logic is identical. The borrower has the right to know the full cost of the agreement before the agreement is made. Amagi stood at the temple in Sippar and received a verbal explanation of a document she couldn't read. You have access to every term of every financial agreement you enter, in writing before you sign. That access is not a courtesy. It is law, and it traces its lineage directly to Babylon. Across 6 cities and 4,000 years of financial history, 3 things appear consistently in the records of the people who navigated the systems they were inside. The first, they read the contract. The families who managed debt most effectively across Babylonian history were not the wealthiest ones. They were the ones who understood the terms of every agreement before entering it. In 2026, the Truth in Lending Act requires every lender to provide the full annual percentage rate, the total cost of credit over the life of the loan, and all material fees before you sign. Reading it carefully, comparing lenders, understanding the difference between fixed and variable rates, knowing what a prepayment penalty means, is the most direct application of Hammurabi's 4,000-year-old logic available to you today. It is free. It takes an afternoon. The second, they understood position. Babylon sat on the Euphrates. Athens controlled the Aegean. Carthage held the Strait of Gibraltar. Alexandria sat at the crossing of 3 continents. Rome commanded the road network of an empire. Constantinople owned the only passage between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Not one of these cities became a financial capital because of what it owned in isolation. Everyone derived its power from where it sat relative to where things were moving. The principle translates directly: the intersection of skills that are individually common but rare in combination. The professional network positioned at the crossing of two sectors that rarely communicate. The knowledge base at the junction of technical depth and communicative clarity. These are the modern equivalents of geographic position, and they compound over time in exactly the same way. The third, they documented everything. Every financial transition across the 6 cities we examined produced 2 outcomes: people whose positions held, and people whose positions did not. The single most consistent differentiator, found in Babylonian cuneiform records, Athenian banking papyri, Roman census rolls, Byzantine commercial archives, was whether their agreements were written down, witnessed, stored. In 2026, this means reviewing documents, not just signing them, keeping records of every significant financial agreement, verifying that beneficiary designations on retirement accounts are current, understanding what your insurance policy covers and what it excludes, not as a precaution against disaster, as the baseline behavior of anyone who has learned from 4,000 years of financial history what separates the people who navigate systems from the people who are simply carried along by them. None of these 3 things require wealth. None require professional advice to begin. All trace their lineage, in a direct and unbroken line, to the clay tablets of Babylon. Remember where we started. A 7-foot column of black stone, Babylon, 1754 BCE. That column is not a relic from a world that no longer exists. It is the opening chapter of a continuous story, running from the Euphrates River in ancient Iraq, to the silver mines of Lorient in Greece, to the trading posts of Carthage on the North African coast, to the harbor of Alexandria where 3 continents met, to the forums of Rome, to the Bosphorus Strait where Constantinople held the world's reserve currency for 7 centuries. 6 cities, 4,000 years. 1 unbroken line. The system you live inside was built by people with names in cities with addresses, at moments that are fully documented. And that means something important. A system you understand is a system you can navigate. The blueprint was written 4,000 years ago. You just read it. If this kind of financial history, the real story of where the systems we live inside came from, is what you are looking for, this channel exists for exactly that. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss what comes next. And now, the question I asked at the beginning. 6 financial capitals. Babylon wrote the legal architecture. Athens built the dual financial system. Carthage owned the roots. Alexandria engineered the knowledge economy. Rome scaled taxation across an entire civilization. Constantinople held the reserve currency for 7 centuries by maintaining institutional trust above everything else. Each one held the center of the financial world, and each one eventually passed that center to the next. Tell me in the comments, looking at those 6 cities and what defined each one at its peak, which one do you think most closely mirrors where the United States sits in the global financial order right now? And what does that parallel suggest about what comes next? I want to read every answer.